My name is John Markle. Thank you all for coming here today. I am the founder of Markle Law, which I've had the opportunity to talk to many of you before, but I'm a civil rights lawyer here in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm joined here today with Gasper Stair from my office to my right. Of course, you know Mr. Kennedy, who's sitting here to my right, and with Mr. Sean Murphy of the Head and Murphy Law Firm, who's co-counsel in this case. And we're here to announce the filing of a $100 million plus civil rights lawsuit against DK Metcalf, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chad Ochocinco Johnson, Shay Shay Media LLC, All Time Sports LLC, DBA, doing business as The Volume, which many of you are familiar with, and the management company for Ford Field. This is a very serious lawsuit. It's my honor to file this on behalf of Mr. Kennedy and my firm's honor, along with my co-counsel. This lawsuit arises out of an unprovoked physical assault at Ford Field on December 21st of 2025, where Mr. Kennedy, who's been a lifelong Lions fan and goes to just about every single home game, did what he did for more than 15 years. He attended the game as a devoted fan, and he cheered for the Lions, and he rooted for his home team. He's a Detroiter through and through, loves the city, loves the people. You're going to hear he has a statement that I'd like to give to everyone who's listening. He's followed the Lions, and if you're from Detroit, or you're just a Lions fan who's not from Detroit, he's followed the Lions through struggles, resurgence, the ups and downs, attending games, and, having to give the familiar refrain of, well, we always have next year. But he never gave up hope. He loves the city and he loves the Lions. He was excited to attend, as many were. There's many of us were at that game. I myself was at that game, which I'm not going to recount the disappointing circumstances that are not related to this case at the end of that game. But he was looking at root his team and to have a good time and hopefully get us to continue to the playoffs. What he experienced instead was an unjustifiable assault and battery at the hands of DK Metcalf, who was in uniform and playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nobody should have to be assaulted at a game, especially not a fan, and especially not by, this wasn't like a fan-on-fan dispute or anything like that. He was assaulted by an individual who was the star, one of the stars of the game, who felt so able to do this with the eyes of Detroit, Pittsburgh, and the country watching him. I mean, I imagine that you feel so secure and comfortable and you think that you're above the law that you would physically assault someone when you know everybody's watching and you know there would be ramifications for you. But that was just the beginning of this story for Mr. Kennedy. That was just the beginning, and that's not the worst part, right? I mean, nobody deserves to be assaulted, but I don't think would be here. I don't think I would be here if the story ended there. Because what happened next is just unacceptable and completely reprehensible, in my opinion. Mr. Metcalf, has a well-documented history of fines and disciplinary action and more than aggressive, so to say, play style. And what he did was brazen. But what followed next was a national media embarrassment, disparagement, and pile-on Mr. Kennedy. Within hours of Mr. Kennedy being assaulted, without investigation, without facts, and without any credible evidence, he was branded a racist. He was branded a misogynist. He was branded as somebody who deserved what I think a lot of people, with the allegations were true, would deserve some type of reaction from a player. Media reports, including the Nightcap podcast, which starred Chad Ochocinco Johnson, as well as Shannon Sharp, a former NFL player and Hall of Famer who many of you are familiar with, a nationally known media sports figure, had a podcast on December 22nd of 2025 where Mr. Ochocinco Johnson appeared along with Mr. Sharp and publicly accused my client, Mr. Kennedy, of horrible racism, saying what is the most horrible, bigoted, racially charged, inflammatory word in the English language, which is that he deserved what happened to him. Mr. Kennedy deserved what happened to him because he called Metcalf a racial slur, specifically the N-word, and I'm not going to say it. And that he also called his mom the C-word. Horrible things, horrible allegations. The problem is they're not true. He also was repeated on the show that Mr. Kennedy called Metcalf the N-word and his mama the C-word. That was the second time. And then finally, quote, based on what I was told from a reliable source who wears number 4, that's what it was. In other words, Mr. Kennedy called Metcalf the N-word and the C-word. Horrible, horrible things. Defendant Johnson expressly stated that he heard it from DK and identified Metcalf as the source of these defamatory, and according to our complaint, they're completely false. Mr. Kennedy has denied it previously. He'll continue to deny it. It just didn't happen. Okay, and for those of you who've been to Ford Field, I'm a season ticket holder. I love the Lions. I cheer for them, like many of you. The idea that somebody in the middle of a city so diverse as ours, in the middle of a public venue, in a crowd full of people from all walks of life, it's the NFL is like the great equalizer, right? We go there from all socioeconomic classes, from white, black, whatever your national origin or race, and we all go there together, and we sit together, and we cheer together, and we cry together, and we, jockey each other a little bit together. But the idea that Mr. Kennedy would say such a vile and hateful word in a crowded stadium and shout it so loud that Mr. Metcalf could hear it and that nobody would do anything about it, nobody would heard of it, is just absurd. And Mr. Kennedy's going to tell you it didn't happen. Had this happened, he would have been dragged out of there by fans of Detroit and Pittsburgh alike, or the security staff of Ford Field. And it just didn't happen. But that's what was told to millions of people across this country through Mr. Metcalf's alleged words, according to Mr. Ochocinco. And it's just harmful. But again, that's not the end of the story, because had the issue been addressed, maybe I wouldn't be here. And maybe Mr. Kennedy wouldn't be here. Had somebody come forward and said, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. Let's talk about this. We wouldn't be here. The Nightcap podcast instead went out to more than 1.97 million subscribers. It reached millions, and then it was published from there on out. It was picked up by YouTube, Facebook, X. It was on the NFL Network. It was on Yahoo Sports. It was on ESPN. It was everywhere. This was the story that everybody in the sports world was talking about, and that they're continuing to talk about. So Mr. Kennedy's lawyers from the head law firm sent what's called a retraction letter to Mr. Metcalf, to Shannon Sharp's podcast, to all the defendants. and said, please retract these statements, which it's called a retraction letter, to give them an opportunity to clear the air, because we understand that mistakes can happen. We understand that there was a lot going on. There's a lot of careers, including Mr. Kennedy's, that are hanging in the balance. And so we want to give people the opportunity to clear the air and to make things and to make the truth be heard. No retraction was issued from any of the defendants. The head law firm asked, the lawyers asked, that it just be clarified and said that this didn't happen. They were ignored. And that's why we're here. And that's why we had to file this lawsuit, because we need to clear the name of Mr. Kennedy, who's now been branded with a scarlet letter in the national and worldwide media as a racist and a bigot, when he did nothing wrong except go to cheer his home team as he's done year after year. And nobody deserves that. And what's especially troubling is what type of message this sends to true victims and the harm that it does to true victims of racial discrimination. I'm a civil rights lawyer. I've been defending the rights of those of minorities, of the underprivileged, of those who've been discriminated against and abused since the very first year of my career. I have the largest racial discrimination verdict in the history of the state of Michigan against the state of Michigan, our state government, for African-American couple who is discriminated against. And I have countless cases now and in the past of individuals who've been discriminated against and who have truly been subjected to racial discrimination, including the use of the N-word, sexual harassment, religious discrimination, all kinds of horrible things. What is harmful to victims, who I represent and will continue to represent, of racial and other type of discrimination, is completely false or made up claims to deflect attention from wrongdoing by playing on those natural disgust and feelings that we have towards that type of behavior. It doesn't just do it harm Mr. Kennedy, who certainly been harmed and has now been branded as a racist by the defendants in this case, but it does harm to these true victims who are out there, and it discourages their ability to come forward on and report things, because they will be, these types of things will be used to damage their reputation, career, and emotional well-being. And so that's the true victims as a result of this case. And Mr. Kennedy's not just fighting for himself and to clear his name, but to clear the name of everyone else out there. So we brought claims in this lawsuit for defamation, both libel and slander. One is spoken defamation. In other words, you say something that's harmful and not true. And one is written, because the podcast, as we've outlined in our complaint, which is pending in Wayne County Circuit Court for the Honorable Patricia Frazar, the former chief judge, is that they then put it in writing and they doubled down. This was not a singular mistake statement. This was a statement that was repeated at least 3 times on the air and then put into writing. We have defamation per se. The complaint alleges defamation per quad, civil conspiracy to make false accusations. We've alleged that the Pittsburgh Steelers are responsible for, as the employer of Mr. Metcalf, for his actions, as well as for negligently supervising, retaining, training, and hiring Mr. Metcalf when they knew or should have known that this type of thing could happen. This wasn't the first time. And by the way, Mr. Metcalf, the complaint is being amended to include the fact that a year ago, in 2024, Mr. Metcalf apparently made statements about Mr. Kennedy, accusing him of the same false and defamatory type of things, which are not true. Assault and battery against defendant Metcalf, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and negligence against all the defendants. Premises liability claims, false light claims, and we're seeking damages for reputational damage, emotional damage, lost business opportunities. Mr. Kennedy is the CEO and runs his own business. So, I mean, imagine the type of harm that this does to a business owner. It's just astronomical. Exemplary damages, and perhaps most importantly, we're seeking what we gave the defendants the opportunity to do without a lawsuit, without a public lawsuit, which is a retraction. Because the only way to get a retraction to clear Mr. Kennedy's name, once we gave them the opportunity to do so voluntarily, is to file a lawsuit. And this isn't about hating Metcalf. This isn't about any ill will towards the Pittsburgh Steelers or any of the defendants, but this is about holding those accountable who have not done the right thing, even though they were given the opportunity to fix the situation. And unfortunately, that's why we're here, and that's why Mr. Kennedy had to hire lawyers. With great power and privilege comes great responsibility. I think that the facts of this case are especially egregious because you have individuals who are role models, who are looked up to by children and by the American population and the worldwide population as great sports individuals who've accomplished amazing things that most of us couldn't dream of athletically accomplishing. With that position, you are not held to a lesser standard. I think you should be held to a greater standard, or at least that of all of us. And it's not fair that no media figure is free to destroy a private citizen's life with false accusations simply because they have a microphone and a pulpit, and a bully pulpit. Ryan Kennedy's not a racist. He is not a criminal. He's a victim. He's a lifelong Detroit Lions fan who should have never left Ford Field with his name and reputation in tatters. And we're gonna bring that back. We're gonna show the world who the real Mr. Kennedy is, who's a caring individual who supports all the people of Detroit and who supports the Detroit Lions. Fame does not shield misconduct, and influence does not exclude recklessness. The defendants were given the opportunity to do the right thing, and that's why we're here. And they want to fight. We're going to have Mr. Kennedy's going to give a brief statement now, followed by Mr. Stair, and then I will answer any questions that you may.
I've been a Detroit Lions fan my entire life. I've held season tickets, brought friends and family to Ford Field, and celebrated the incredible diversity, energy, resilience, and pride that make Detroit and its sports culture so special. Lions games have always been about community and having fun for me. People from every background coming together to support the team and the city that we love. I respect the NFL, its players, and fans of all races and cultures, and I would never use nor publicly shout racial slurs or threatening language. Simply not who I am, never has been. This is Detroit, and we hold each other accountable. So when you attend NFL games, you see messages like "it takes all of us" and "end racism" displayed throughout the stadium and on players' helmets. And I believe in those messages. By bringing this lawsuit, I'm trying to do exactly that. Do the right thing, clear the air, stand up for the actual truth. What's been said about me on national and international media is false and deeply hurtful. Being publicly labeled a racist based on something I did not say has caused serious damage to my family, business, reputation, and has put my personal safety at risk. I filed this lawsuit not out of anger, but out of a need to restore the truth and accountability. I love the game, I love the city, and I love the people in it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Attorney Gasper Stair. As we heard here, Ryan Kennedy was falsely accused on a national stage without any credible evidence of being a racist. And those statements, those false statements, caught like wildfire and had a detrimental impact on him and his life and his family. And we're here to correct that record. You know, politicians aside, we hear a lot about professional athletes criticizing the media. I'm sure many of you in this very room has taken some sort of criticism from a professional athlete at one point or another. And so here we have two former professional athletes Former NFL superstars, Chad Ochocinco-Johnson and Shannon Sharp, who go from those roles as players to now stepping into your shoes as being a part of the media. You would think that they would be smarter with their words. They should be held to a higher standard, not a lower one, because they know better. They have massive platforms, and let's be honest, they got a noted history of their own legal troubles themselves. We all know about them. So you would think they'd be smarter with their words. We heard on the Nightcap podcast right here how they were talking about, how is it that DK Metcalf could just explode? He wouldn't just explode if he was just simply said his quote unquote government name. Yeah, we have a noted history of his violence demonstrated on the field. We saw back in training camp in Seattle 2024, he had no problems grabbing a helmet and smashing it against his own teammates. That's the type of player he is. That's the type of player he always was. But let me ask you this. What kind of reasonable person, let alone a white man in 2025 here in downtown Detroit, would go out and shout out the N-word across the field? That doesn't make much sense now, does it? But DK Metcalf exploding, that definitely makes sense. Bottom line, this case is about setting the record straight, clearing Ryan's name, and holding powerful voices accountable when they get it wrong. And they got it wrong. Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Can you explain what was said during this altercation? If it wasn't what they were saying on the podcast?
What do you mean during the altercation?
Or what created this? Was it, did you say?
Well, what created, I think what created it was, I was at that game, right? It was an intense game. Emotions are high. It was a close game. I think we should have won that game, but that's my bias speaking. I don't know what's in Mr. Metcalf's mind. Look, as a professional athlete who plays at a high elite level and who gets paid tens of millions of dollars a year, you expect when you go to an away game, as Mr. Metcalf was at, that you are going to be heckled by the crowds. That comes with your territory. It's not just Mr. Kennedy, it's all of us. You get booed when you do things, you get called names, you get said all kinds of things to you. That is part of the deal. That is expected. Now, nobody should ever recall a racist term. I don't care whether you're at a football game, you're at a Kroger store or anywhere. That's totally unacceptable, but that's not what happened. So there is nothing more than simple, normal heckling, if that's what you want to call it, not just from Mr. Kennedy, but from that entire crowd. Look, I was there. I was one of the hecklers myself saying that this is BS, some of these calls from the refs during that game, which I disagreed with. That's part of the sportsman-like atmosphere. That's part of what makes it fun is we can cheer for our team, we can boo for the other team, and we can all go home happy. There's no excuse for what he did, and certainly no racial slurs or epithets were hurled his way. And what caused him to lose it? I mean, as we can see, he lost it. I mean, to do this isn't like we're at my law firm in the back and a scuffle breaks out and nobody sees it. He's doing this on the national stage in front of everybody, where he's pulling him down and then assaulting and battering him by swiping at his face. You're going to have to ask Mr. Metcalf why he did that.
Mr. Marco.
Yeah, I'm speaking.
Yeah, this is Sheldon Ingram, WTAE in Pittsburgh. What did Mr. Kennedy say to cause Mr. Metcalf to approach him?
So, again, I don't know. I don't like Mr. Kennedy didn't do anything that anybody else wasn't doing. He was cheering for his team. He was rooting for the Lions, and he was booing some of the calls and the plays by the Steelers. He was engaging in what he's engaged in for the last 15 years, in which the majority of fans engage in. The only person that's responsible for Mr. Metcalf assaulting and battering a fan in front of the world is Mr. Metcalf. Absent some extraordinary circumstance, there is no excuse for that type of behavior. What's important here is Mr. Kennedy did nothing that violated any code of conduct of the Detroit Lions. Mr. Kennedy did nothing that violated any law, and he did nothing that violated any normal, customary sense of decency at a football game where we root for our team. Which, most importantly, he didn't call Mr. Metcalf a racial slur, which is what he said he did, and he did not call Mr. Metcalf's mother a C word. That's the excuse that, at least according to Mr. Johnson and on the podcast, as the excuse that was given for Mr. Metcalf's assaultive behavior. If that didn't happen, then you should ask Mr. Metcalf why he would say that that happened. I can tell you that this case would not be brought in. I would not bring this case in my firm, which is a civil rights law firm, if Mr. Kennedy had used a racial slur against Mr. Metcalf. That was my first question to Mr. Kennedy. That was our first questions to the defendants when we tried to talk to them about the case through the head law firm. Because if that happened, I wouldn't be here. And neither would many of you.
So for clarity purposes, what did Mr. Kennedy say?
I just told you, he was rooting for the Lions and
Rooting for the does rooting for the Lions cause Mr. Metcalf to come at him directly? My question is, was there anything that directed at Metcalf?
I understand that you're a Steelers fan and that you're, well, then I object to the premise of your, that's like saying, that's like a wife abuser who says, why did you make me beat you? Why did you have to make me angry and beat you? That's what you're saying. I think that's an absurd premise. Okay? Go ask Mr. Metcalf why he lost his cool on the field, not against other players and play harder, but against a fan in front of everybody and assaulted and battered him. Go ask him. Don't make a false premise. That's very dangerous. And that's excusing assaultive behavior. That's excusing defamatory behavior. And that's like a woman being blamed for her husband beating her because who said she made me, why do you make me angry? So, okay, we're done with that question. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Now, with the situation that happened with Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Metcalf, is Mr. Kennedy still in good standing as a season ticket member? Will he still be allowed at Ford Field for future games?
Well, we have no indication. We didn't sue the Detroit Lions. We certainly, as you can see, he's a Detroit Lions fan through and through. At his first press conference, where's your phone, Ryan? Even his phone has a Detroit Lions ticket. I've never met such a diehard fan as Mr. Kennedy. He loves the Lions. What in the world, why would he be prevented from going to a game? There's no allegation. There's no credible allegation from anyone who has knowledge that Mr. Kennedy violated any code of conduct. There's no credible allegation or evidence that he did anything that would warrant his season tickets to be taken away that he pays for, and that he goes and loves the Lions. He's an asset to the team. He's the type of fans that we want to have at games. By the way, the Detroit police are investigating this circumstance as an assault on him. They're not investigating a hate crime or the use of hateful language, to my knowledge at least, against Mr. Metcalf. He's the victim here. So these types of questions where it would be insinuated explicitly or implicitly that he's at fault, that he's the aggressor, I think is the whole problem with why we had to bring this lawsuit to clear his name in the first place. Simply because Mr. Metcalf is a wonderful athlete and has achieved great things and has a great position and is famous along with the other defendants doesn't mean that they can't be wrong and that he should be transferred from a victim to someone who's at fault. Mr. Metcalf may be charged with assault. We don't know. We're gonna have to see what the Detroit police, my understanding is it's under review from the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office as to what they're gonna decide to do. But no, to answer your question, I don't see anything that would prevent that. He's gotten along great with all the Lions people. He goes to every game. You know, the security has never had a problem with him, to my knowledge. He's always been respectful of them and always followed the rules of conduct. He doesn't even swear, you know, when he goes to games, which I think a lot of us out there, if we're being honest with ourselves, we've maybe said some swear words at games, or, you know, what in the bleep are you doing, ref? You know, not to hurt somebody, but to express our frustration with the game that we love so much. But no, to my knowledge, there should be absolutely no repercussions. This case is not about the Lions. It's not about the Ford family or the allegations that they did anything wrong. It's about protecting the fans, protecting the brand. We should all be able to go to these games as fans and not be subjected to leaving that stadium and having our lives ruined and our reputations ruined based on any type of false allegations.
How did you arrive at the figure of $100 million?
Well, to be clear, it's $100 million minimum. The complaint said $100 million or more. I think that, you know, it's ultimately going to be up to a jury of Wayne County citizens to decide what the appropriate measure of damages is in this case. But imagine going through the rest of your life with a scarlet letter that says that you're a racist bigot, and having that spread and having you should hear some of we're going to be releasing, not today, but later, some of the hateful types of threatening messages that him and his family have gotten, threatening his safety, you know, threatening his business, threatening him. So it's just horrible. Nobody should have to go through this. And this was all avoidable.
People will see the $100 million figure in headlines and call it a money grab. What would you say?
A money grab? I mean, I don't think that you know, when you see, I saw a Picasso painting the other day that was being auctioned off for hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's a painting, and Picasso's a great artist, okay? He's a famous, wonderful artist. But what's somebody's reputation and lifelong damage to a human being? You know, they can say whatever they want. We gave the defendants an opportunity so we wouldn't have to be here. And now we are.
Mr. Kennedy, can you go into depth how this has been for you and your family?
He's not going to give any more statements today.
Has Mr. Kennedy had any other interactions with Metcalf, or was this the first time?
Well, as I stated earlier, I mean, has he had any like personal interactions? Like they're not over each other's house hanging out.
Like over social media or at games?
Well, not that I'm aware of. There was again, you know, Mr. Metcalf was at, when he played for Seattle, you know, they were here on home games, and Mr. Kennedy attended those games as well. And Mr. Metcalf, to our understanding, we're going to be filing an amended complaint, made false claims against Mr. Kennedy related to that, to try to cover up that racist things.
What year was that?
That was 24.
What are the next steps in this case? You guys have filed. What happens from here?
So like any lawsuit, you know, the defendants will have the opportunity to hire their own attorneys, and then there'll probably be a lot of litigation. We're gonna sit down and because we gave the defendants an opportunity through the co-counsel head law firm, gave them the opportunity to explain and lay out their position and retract and clarify whether this did or didn't happen. Because, you know, you can't say these types of things unless they're 100% accurate and true. This is like the most damaging thing you could say of us. So we're going to depose, in other words, put under oath, DK and Mr. Ocho Cinco Johnson and Mr. Sharp and the other individuals who were involved. And we're going to have them say under oath what was said and what wasn't said, what's true and what's not true. We've also done an investigation. For those of you who know me, I don't just go and file things willy-nilly. I take my oath as a lawyer very seriously. I admit when I'm wrong, and I put the pedal to the metal and double down when I'm right. And so we investigated, including reviewing all the evidence available to us in this case. And so we're also going to be getting statements, and I'm sure there'll be sworn testimony from the individuals who were sitting right there around Mr. Kennedy, who, based on our investigation, are going to say that no, this didn't happen. There was no racial slurs of any kind. There was no CUNT words of any kind. And there was no violations of the code of conduct for a fan that Mr. Kennedy thinks. So, I mean, from our standpoint, this is a pretty straightforward case. And so the defendants have kind of two options. They can say, we made it up, or, yeah, he said it, and then we're going to say, where's the proof? Because to date, no proof has been provided to us. And the idea that this occurred in a crowded stadium and nobody heard it, I mean, it's something you're not going to forget that. You're going to leave that stadium saying, you're not going to believe what happened today. What this guy was saying in front of everybody, screaming it in downtown Detroit.
Yeah, I'd be more worried about the fans and the players on the field if you're going to shut that out.
Yeah, so that's what's next in this case.
Does the opportunity to publicly recant still on the table? Does this all go away if they recant publicly?
I invite them to recant publicly. We've invited them before. We've continued to invite a public recantation by all the defendants. I think that will go a long way in restoring accountability in this case, because that's something that we're having to ask the court to order. I mean, you've seen this. Remember the Johnny Depp versus the Heard trial, right? Those were two individuals who both had a lot of money, right? So it wasn't about the money. It was about clearing names. And it took a public trial, in order to get justice in that sense. I hope that they'll come and recant in this case. We invite them to. They have my information. They can reach out to me. Their attorneys, agents, Steelers, anybody can reach out to me as a representative of Mr. Kennedy. And we would love to have that. I think some of the damage is done, but I think that would go a long way to restoring truth and justice and accountability.
You mentioned that Mr. Kennedy is the CEO of a business. Are you able to share what business that is?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Do you know how many hate messages and bad? I'm not going to add to Mr. Kennedy's reputational damage. Enough has been done. It's continuing to be done. So no, I'm not going to do that to this man, and I'm not going to worsen this. I'm here to try to help heal and to help restore, not degrade. Okay, everybody, thank you so much on behalf of Mr. Kennedy and the rest of us here. We appreciate your attention to this matter, and we'll keep you informed as these developments continue, because there's going to be a lot more evidence that we're going to be putting out there as part of this litigation that I think you're going to find very illuminating in terms of this case.
Thank you.